This game's got a lot of meaning for us right now. One, just leading the senior class out on a high note, but this is our opportunity to win 4 straight bowl games, which this is going to be, they have the opportunity to be the first senior class to do that. And, we're excited to be here. This win will actually, if we win this game, it will actually help us going into the offseason as well, and it'll help with recruiting, and, everybody likes being on a high note. So, we're excited to be here, and, we're ready for this challenge. And, it's definitely going to be a fun game for me, especially seeing a lot of faces that I've seen in the past. So, we're excited to be here.
Great. Well, we're glad to have you. The format is going to be the same for all of these. Coach will have an opening statement. He'll talk to whatever he wants to discuss with you. Then if you have questions, you can ask him at that time, and then we'll break down and we'll have the players. You'll see their names here, and you can do one-on-ones with them as soon as that becomes available. So, Coach Spavital, glad to have you.
All right.
Fire ahead.
Questions?
Just shout them right out.
Please.
All right, for you, I'm sure this is dead horse territory, but what's it mean for you to be going up against Dana? Obviously, mentor, had a lot of impact on you. I mean, for those of us who haven't gotten to talk to you, what's it like getting to square off against him?
It's pretty interesting, just in overall, because he trained me in this offense, and I know how he trains the quarterback, and he knows how I train the quarterback, which is going to get pretty interesting. So, we've had to change up some things from signals to communication, and because they know it, obviously. But it's going to be fun, and it's good to look across the field and at least see him and see some familiar faces. Because I enjoyed my time at West Virginia, and it's definitely going to be a fun game, a good experience for me.
He's joked about not reinventing the wheel. I mean, you guys do what you do. So when you talk about changing things, how hard is it to mask when there's so many similarities there?
How long did he let you watch practice today?
15 minutes?
So he might be changing some things. He normally goes about 30 for you guys, right? So, you can't go in and just completely change everything about what you're doing offensively or as a team in general. So, there's just going to be some little things that, you tweak here and there, but the overall philosophy of each team is going to be the same, and what they wrote out on the entire season, what makes them have any success out there. So I won't see too many changes.
With the change in quarterbacks you guys had this year, are you still making adjustments to the different styles, and is it something that's still kind of a work in progress, especially for your line?
Yeah, it definitely is a work in progress. What we did in these bowl practices is we didn't start preparing for West Virginia until about 5-6 practices in, and it was mainly just to help with the development of these kids. We're a very young team. We don't lose, like if you look at our skill positions, we lose one guy. And, we spend a lot of time just going back to the basics and just getting down to coaching and making sure everybody's on the same page. So the development has been huge for these bowl practices, but now we're on to West Virginia, and we're trying to put together the best game plan that we can possibly do for Kyle, and hopefully it fits to him and what he's comfortable with doing, especially against this 3-3 stack that Dana's running.
How's his development? What are the things you're happy with? What are the things he's still got to master?
Yeah, the thing that I'm impressed with him right now is his poise. He gets better each day with that. He'll sit, at the beginning, when he first got here in the spring, Kyle's only been here a year. He showed some panic at times because, it's a new system, it's a different speed. And, throughout the whole process of spring practice and fall camp and through these 5 starts that he's had, that you can tell that he's settled down and showed a lot of poise. I've also said that, the thing that's impressed me the most about him too is I don't put the vocal leadership role on these kids. I think that's naturally just going to happen, just throughout being the quarterback. And, after his first start, he was in there breaking the team down, and people are looking to him for encouragement right now.
Going a step beyond that, how has Kenny been handling, being demoted, going through these other practices? What do you see for him and his future at A&M?
Kenny's been doing great. We repped him with the 1s and the 2s throughout the developmental practices that we had in the bowl prep. He's running with the 2s right now. He's got good energy. He's been great with Kyle. It's hard to explain because you guys don't get to see it as much, but the bond that those two have is pretty unique, which I've never had that before. Normally, when you have a quarterback competition, one wishes the other one not to have success, and it kind of turns out to have some bad karma in the room. But they've both been great to each other, and McKinney moving on, it just staying around and playing the course, they'll have an opportunity to compete for the job.
Jake, 2 years removed from your time in West Virginia, but how well do you know the defensive personnel, player standpoint?
I know it pretty well.
Yeah.
A lot of them were there when I was there. All their linebackers, majority of their defensive line, they brought in a couple of defensive ends from junior college ranks that, and they weren't there when I was there. Their safeties are the same, KJ Dillon and Carl Joseph. I recruited Daryl Worley, so I got a good relationship with him. And the other corners that they rotate are the same. So pretty much there's about 3 guys on that defense side that I really don't have a relationship with.
Jake, you talked to Kyle at all? He's getting ready to make his bowl debut. You worry about his emotion being so amped up in such a big stage?
Yeah, he's a pretty calm and collective kid. And, once you guys start to talk to him after this bowl game, when he's open to media, you'll see how calm he is as a player. But I don't think he's ever going to rise too high for the occasion or too low. He does show some emotion at times, but I don't think anything's going to affect him very much.
Looking beyond the bowl game, how excited are you to get a chance to work with a guy who's been there, who's been around for a long time, and Dave Christensen?
I can't talk about that.
No official announcement has been made regarding any hiring.
That was a
It's
pretty good
all
way you worded it.
speculation now.
I give you props on that one.
Jake,
We get you.
the odd stack defense is said to be the most difficult thing for a spread offense to operate against. Do you buy into that, and if so, why is that the case?
They say that it is. I think the way the game's evolved with the tight ends and how we're still considered a spread team, but we'll put a tight end in the game, which that kind of surfaces them up and it turns into a regular defense. So they are a 3-3 stack. They've gone up against this offense every single day of practice, so they know how to defend it. So we have to do some things that are a little bit different and kind of change it up just to keep them off balance a little bit.
Jake, you mentioned in your first statement about you and Dana know how each of you train quarterbacks. Is that the real familiarity key, because you're going to be able to share and he's going to be able to share what keys they're looking for, the things they're doing? Is that where the biggest familiarity is?
Yeah, and both of these offenses are they're predicated off of the quarterback and how he operates it. So if you can cause confusion for the quarterback, then you can typically get the offense in some bad situations. So yeah, that's something that again, our defense goes up against this offense every day too. So they know what they need to do as well. So there's going to be some chess matches out there that will involve a lot of just games between each other, just to keep people thinking and moving, and maybe you can maybe just do something that is a little non-characteristic of what we changed to train the quarterbacks in the past. So it is definitely going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Who's handling the line bowl game and who's handling the receivers? Coach.
Right now, I'm coaching the receivers. The receivers and the quarterbacks are all meeting together, and Coach McKinney is handling the offensive line with Chris Smith, who is one of our graduate assistants. So yeah, we're pretty short-handed right now.
Biggest changes for you, biggest adjustments you as a staff have had to make? What are the things, where has it affected you?
Yeah, obviously you're down in numbers. Luckily it's a bowl game, so you have a lot of practices, so I can get my point across to the quarterbacks, because you need to spend a lot of time with those quarterbacks, especially being young, and try to install the game plan. But right now I'm meeting with the receivers and the quarterbacks at the same time, so you got to hit the certain points to help the receivers out, and try to talk with the quarterback, do a lot more coaching and teaching throughout the course of the practices and stuff. But we're short. You'd like to have as many coaches as you want to, but the thing is, it is a bowl game, so you have as many practices as you need to in preparation for it. So it's taken us a few more practices to get the point across, but it's all across now.
How beneficial is these extra practices been to Kyle specifically?
It's great. Again, it just goes back to to timing and just working on how the routes are supposed to be ran properly. And he can work with his footwork, and he can work on certain things with his timing. Kyle's got a pretty strong arm, and I train each quarterback differently because each kid is different. Kyle's got a lot stronger arm than Kenny, so Kyle can do a longer drop. Kenny will do a quicker drop. So, a lot of it just has to go back to the basics. We went straight through our installations and what we do in spring ball and fall camp, and we went back to it and just kept repping it until they kind of get back into the swing of things. Because we did give them a week and a half off for finals, and just let them heal up from the season.
With those adjustments, because of your, the familiarity on both sides with the quarterbacks, how much did you have to kind of weigh in their experience level and what they, you want to make adjustments, but you also don't want to overload.
Right. No, that's been huge. I've had a lot of conversations with Kyle throughout practice and everything, asking him if this is too much. Do you like this? Do we need to cut this out? Just to make him as comfortable as possible, because you never want to put too much on a kid. And the thing about Kyle is he'll speak up and tell you if he doesn't like it. And that just goes down to coaching. If he doesn't like it, then we need to cut it or change it. So it has been pretty difficult though at times.
When Kevin hired you, I think he mentioned that there weren't a lot of people that know this offense like you and kind of the group that you've come out of. Was it obvious to you that you were going to have to leave Dana at some point to call your own plays and to kind of make the next step in your development?
Yeah, I thought that eventually I was going to do that. I love working for Dana. He's a fun guy to be around. I enjoyed my time, with him at Houston, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, and I owe a lot to that man. There's not very many people that know this offense, so it's just my career got sped up a lot faster because of how much success this offense has had. And Cliff jumped to a head coaching job at a young age, and put me an opportunity to come to the SEC and call plays, which sounded great for me.
And you guys were roommates at some points along the way. Any roommate stories you're willing to share about Dana?
Oh man, if you're a fly on the wall in that room. No, Dana was great. He took care of me. He treated me like a little brother. He always made sure that I had everything I needed, and that's why I worked so hard for him. And it was tough to leave him because he took such great care of me, but he understood the move.
How much are you going to miss Malcolm Kennedy's leadership after this game?
It's going to be huge. I wish you could always recruit a guy like Malcolm. I've said that before. Man, he's been great for us. That was the emphasis that I said to the receiver room and the quarterback room, is that I want to leave Malcolm on, let him go on a high note because of what he's put into this university and what he means to this team. And you hate to see him go, and hopefully he finishes strong, and wish that he can continue on his career to the next level, and just hopefully he'll have a lot of success there. But we're definitely going to miss that leadership role, and that's what off-season's about. And you got to start putting it on the pressure on these kids for them to step up and try to take that role over, because Malcolm's a great vocal leader, but he's also, he shows it too off the field. Just with his work ethic and just how he practices. That's something I'm going to miss with him too.
Jake, what's it been like having a kid like Mike Matthews anchoring your line? Obviously, a kid who's been around the game from the cradle with his family history and all that. What's it been like?
Man, it's been great. He's a very tough kid too. So he knows he must be tough to play that position, and at the same time, he with the whole bloodline, he's very intelligent. He can get us in the right calls, which we always say that the quarterback is the main deal. He's got to put us in the right place, but once he communicates the play to that center, the center's the guy that's got to lead the O-line in the right direction, and Mike's unbelievable at it. He can identify certain fronts, and he can make the right checks and the right points in the protection in the run game, which makes it very valuable. So, that center who, if you have a guy that has energy and he's intelligent and he's tough, that's one of the top centers that you'll have in this system.
There's some kids put a lot of pressure on themselves when maybe they've had relatives who've done great things in the game, but
right.
It sounds like it's only spurred him on to.
Yeah, it has spurred him along a lot. And we're fortunate to have that. It's just like Jake Matthews too. The brother, when they come in, they're already playing at a different level because their dads, they've been raised around the game, and their dad just trained them in a way that they know the proper technique, and they've been doing that. Mike's been snapping the ball and doing pass sets for a long time now, And, you know, it's very unique because you don't really see the lineage of an O-line room, like how they're just producing all the offensive linemen. So, you know, it's great to have Mike, and, you know, I'm looking forward for him to have another year, and at least we can get these guys behind him, and hopefully they can try to be like Mike as well when, you know, like I was saying with Malcolm, you know, just to follow in those footsteps, and hopefully they see how he practices and approaches the game.
Will Ben Compton be able to go? I think he left the last game pretty banged up.
Yeah, he'll be good. You know, the week and a half off was great. You know, he got banged up a little bit. He's a tough kid. You got to be careful with him because he's always going to say it's okay. So we held him out, and you know he's ready to go. So expect him to be full speed.
Jake, you made reference to basically to how far you had come, how quickly you had come from essentially following Dana around to calling plays in the SEC. Is there a part of you personally, though, that says, you know, this is kind of the test for me to beat him?
You know, I go into each game one to win. I do.
But
You know, it's the competitive nature in both of us. You know, when we take the field, you know, there's nothing, you know, that we're going to take lightly. You know, I'm wanting to go out there and win just as bad as he wants to. So, you know, we got a lot at stake at this line for this game. Just from what I was saying, just the momentum boosting into the offseason, leading these seniors on a high note, 4 bowl games, winning. You know, that's a lot. That has a lot of importance to us. But yeah, there's a lot of personal stuff between me and Dana, but it's really not about us. It's more about, you know, getting these seniors out on the right note.
any side bets?
Any side bets? Yeah, I'll be playing side bets.
Jake, have you ever faced the challenge where you guys are so short-staffed on the offense, so you're basically coaching 2 positions? Have you ever faced anything like this? And how hard
No,
is
I
it?
haven't. I haven't faced this one before. Yeah, it's you know, it's the situation at hand, and you just got to make the best of it. And you know, we're short-staffed, but that kind of comes down to, you know, the kids that we have as the vocal leaders, like your Malcolm Kennedy. Like Malcolm will take the receivers at times during the practice with the GAs and go out there and work with them as well. So, you know, you gotta you know, rely on the senior leadership and our vocal leaders at the same time, trying to keep it all together, which we've done a pretty good job of that right now.
How much coaching do you have to do for an offensive line that is as experienced as yours is, you know, at this point?
How much coaching?
Yeah, you were saying you're doing the offensive line coaching too, but you've got a lot of guys that have played a lot.
Well, Coach McKinney and Chris Smith, our
Oh, okay,
offensive
Coach
GM,
McKinney.
those 2 are the guys that have done it. Now, I'm saying my first job with Dana was in the offensive line room. You know, he put me in there because he thought that was the best thing for it. You know, schematically, I know where they need to go, you know, and who they need to block. You know, but like you get me out there and try to do O-line one-on-one drills with like Cedric Boyd, it just doesn't make too much sense. You know, so you know you got Chris Smith out there, and he's leading in the right direction and doing individual and technique stuff. But you know, with the run game stuff, me and Coach McKinney sat down and we figured out what's going to put us in the best spot.
I guess what it just as it seems like is guys like Mike, who's been, you know, playing for so long,
Right.
et cetera. It seems like those
Yeah,
guys,
and
how
I'm
much
saying they're
coaching
trained
they
now.
really need at this
Yeah, they're
point.
trained and they know what to expect, and they got a lot of pride. You know, that's one of our more experienced rooms, and you know, you really don't have to worry too much about that room because they'll go in there and they'll handle it. And you know, if they screwed up out in practice, you know, they'll yell for a reload, and that happened a few times a day. And you know, they discuss it and they work it all out, and they take a lot of pride in it.
What was your reaction to Clint Trickett announcing that he wasn't going to play anymore and he'll look into coaching?
I actually knew about that a little while ago because Dana was telling me about that would have happened before we were announced in the bowl game. So, yeah, you know, you hate to see that for the kid, but you know, he's got a coaching background as well, and from I haven't been around him at all, but just from what I've heard, he's going to have a great career in the coaching world. Hate to see it for him, you know, being his last game.
What could a big game, Jake, do for Ricky moving forward?
I think it's huge. I think Ricky has had great practices lately, and he's taking a lot of pride in it. He's out there working, and then he's trying to get better. And again, he's a young receiver. You know, this is his first year playing receiver, and you know, it's been great for him. And this is going to be a big game to gain that confidence leading into the offseason and hopefully it can turn into one of those more vocal leaders for us because, you know, we're going to need some guys to step up and knock them down.
From an incredible high for